All right, everybody, this is a guided walkthrough for Dockerlabs very easy machines. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out how to download these machines and deploy them to our system. So, of course, Dockerlabs makes use of Docker containers. And exactly how we're going to be deploying these containers, that's what we're going to be explaining right now. So this is the injection machine over here. This is the first machine we're going to be hacking against. And in order to do that, we need to download the container first. So there's a button over here that, well, it's an arrow that goes down, so we can assume that it's going to be download. We can click on that, and then it's going to bring us to the download site. All right, from there, we can click on download, and the Docker container, well, not the Docker container, but the zip file which contains the Docker container, that's going to be downloaded to our machine. So if you're working with Kali Linux, like I am over here, then you're going to see that the zip file is going to be in your downloads directory. So let's go over to our tab over here. So we're in the downloads directory now. We're going to see that the machine that the zip file that we downloaded is over here. So the first thing we need to do is we need to unzip this file. So we just need to use the unzip command, and that's going to unzip this zip file, but inside is a tar file. So you might think that the tar file is something we need to unzip as well, but that's not the case. So for each one of these Dockerlabs machines, it comes with this autodeploy.sh script. So autodeploy is here, and if we take a look at the contents of the file is basically going to deploy the Docker container. Of course, most of the comments here are in Spanish, but we're going to trust that the people over at Dockerlabs don't want to hack us, because we're going to have to run this script in order to deploy the machine. So in order to deploy the machine, what we're going to do is we're going to use the chmod command plus X for execute, and we're going to apply it to the autodeploy.sh script. So after that, you're going to see that the autodeploy.sh script is executable, and in order to deploy the machine, we need to run the autodeploy.sh script, and we need to specify the tar file with the Docker container that we want to deploy. So in this case, it's injection.tar. So we're going to give this command, and then we're going to receive this message here. So estamos desplegando. Estamos desplegando la máquina vulnerable. Espere un momento. So that's deploying the vulnerable machine. Please wait. And then after a few moments, it's going to give us the IP address that the Docker container can be interacted with at. So for all of these challenges, the IP address is going to be 172.17.0.2. Actually, that's not true. Some of the challenges are 172.18.0.2, but for most of the challenges, this is going to be the IP address. So this is both a good thing, because that means we don't need to change our IP addresses all that much while we do hacking against these machines. But there are some disadvantages, because well, we'll find out that the SSH, if we need to log into these machines via SSH, it can become a little bit complicated, and we'll need to clear out our SSH host file every once in a while, because we're going to be using the same IP addresses over and over again. So let's go ahead and start this machine. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some nmap scans against it. So nmap, we're going to scan against all the ports. We're going to scan it very fast, but not too fast. And we're going to be scanning against the specified IP address. So it's going to be 172.17.0.2. So when we scan this machine, we're going to scan all the ports with this option here. We're going to scan it very verbose with this option here. We're going to scan it very fast but not too fast with this option here. And we're going to scan it and get the versioning information and we're going to run common scripts with this option here. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that nmap scan. So we're going to see that there are 2 ports available on the machine, and the 2 ports are port 22 and port 80. So port 22 is running SSH. So this is the remote login service, and we see that it is running with this version right here. So sometimes, very, very rarely, you will have a version of OpenSSH that is vulnerable to some sort of exploit. It's not the case in most cases. It's not the case in this case. But the other thing that we see is that port 80 is open, and port 80 is the web port, HTTP with no security, and we see that it is open on port 80 with the Apache Webserver software running this version right here. Okay, so what we want to do next is we want to investigate the website associated with the server. So we're going to go over and use our web browser, and we're going to navigate to HTTP 172.17.0.2, and we're going to see that there's a login form here. So when we see a login form, there's all sorts of enumeration that we can do against it. Not the least of which is taking a look at the HTTP source associated with the page. So we could do keyboard shortcut Control U to take a look at the source code for this page. Sometimes there's some good information that can be obtained by taking a look at the source code here. And one thing that we can get from taking a look at this page here is that this is the endpoint that has the login form, and it's called index.php. So sometimes this is important information. But anyways, let's go back. So another thing that we should test for every time we see a login page is we should test it for SQL injection. So SQL injection is basically trying to run database commands on the login form and trying to bypass the login page. So when we're dealing with these login pages, we can test for simple login bypass by running this kind of payload right here. So if we're interacting with the database, and anytime you're trying to log in, you're interacting with a database that has a list of usernames and passwords. And this command right here, if the web application is vulnerable, will let us log in, usually as the admin user. So the single quote over here is going to break out of the SQL statement, and then we provide a true statement over here, or 1 = 1, which is going to return true, and then we're going to comment out all of the other code in the SQL statement after that with the double dashes here. Double dashes followed by another space. So the reason we do this is because the type of SQL statement that is used to log people in, it's going to be a true or false statement. So it's either going to be this username with this password where the username and password are correct, or it's going to be this other thing that we provide here, 1 = 1, which is a true statement. So for the password, it doesn't matter what we provide for the password. And if it works, we're going to log into the web application. So we click log in, and then we get this message. So it says, welcome Dylan. So it says, welcome Dylan. Insertado. Anyways, let's try translating this page. So translate the page from Spanish to English. Let's translate it. Now that we've translated the Spanish here, it says, welcome Dylan, you have correctly inserted your password. and some sort of alphanumeric string. So we have the password and we have a username over here. So we can use this credential set to log into the server. So let's go ahead and go over to here. We're going to SSH as the Dylan user. And it's going to be to 172.17.02. Okay, it's going to ask us if we want to continue connecting. The answer is yes. For the password, we're going to paste in the password that we just got. Of course, we can do right click and then paste selection, or paste clipboard to paste it in as well. Hit enter, and then we're logged in. Okay, so we ask who am I? It says we are the Dylan user, which means we're in. And we're going to call Scary Hacker Voice Man to talk about what happened here.
Hey everybody, it's me, Scary Hacker Voice Man. Scary Hacker Voice Man comes out every time we break into a server, and we just broke into this one. Well, Mr. Injection Web Administrator, you thought it would be okay to insecurely code your web application login page, huh? Well, that means you left it vulnerable to SQL injection, and we were able to log in. That was a big mistake. We capitalized on your mistake, and then we retrieved the Dylan user's password and we logged in. Maybe you knew about these security flaws, or maybe you decided to accept the risk. Well, you accepted the risk, and now we're in.
Okay, we're in. Let's so from here, what we need to do is we need to figure out how to escalate our privileges. So this is in the security scene, we call this privilege escalation, and it's basically trying to figure out how to go from a low-level user to the highest level of user, and on these Linux machines, that is the root user. So one very typical thing that we would check is if our current user has any sudo permissions. So sudo permissions are basically commands that we can run as the super user, and we would check like this: sudo -l for list, and we see that the sudo command is not found. Okay, so another thing we can do is we can check to see if there are SUID binaries on the system. So SUID binaries are commands that run as another user, and we check for it with this command right here. So it's going to be find in the entire file system. So we're going to look for files with a certain permission, and actually wait, perm, yeah, it's perm, just like this. And we're going to find that there is one unusual SUID binary in this bunch over here. So there are certain binaries that are supposed to run with the SUID bet set. And if we take a look at something like this one that we're going to be exploiting in just a second, if we take a look at the file permissions on this file here, we see that the file is the env binary, which is used to run commands with the certain environmental variables. It is owned by root, and it does have the SUID bit set. That means that when we run this command, we're running it as root. And the problem with that is that certain binaries, when run with the SUID bit set, can give you elevated privileges. So what we would do normally is we would check for these kind of vulnerabilities on a site like GTFObins, and GTFObins is a great resource for figuring out if you can do privilege escalation with certain Linux binaries. So there's a search bar here, and we can search for the env binary, and it says that there's a function for shell, SUID, and sudo. So we've got SUID capabilities with this command. So it says here that if the binary has the SUID bit set, it does not drop the elevated privileges and may be abused to access the file system. So what does it say over here? So we can use this command over here to abuse the SUID binary. So it's env /bin/sh-p. So I think the -p is meant to preserve your what is it called? Your user permissions. Anyways, let's go ahead and do privilege escalation. So to do privilege escalation, we would run the env binary, and env is a SUID binary, so that means it's running as root, and we would run bash. So okay, so maybe we do. We're running bash over here, but we're the Dylan user. Let's get out of here, and let's do -p. So -p might help us preserve our user permissions, and in this case, it works. So when we run the env binary with the -p flag over here, it creates a new bash shell, and because it is a SUID binary, we now have a root shell. So we are root. So that means
what are you? I'm system root.
okay, so what are we going to do with our access here? We're going to move into the root directory. And now that we're here, we're in the root directory. And the thing about these challenges is that there are no traditional flags for these challenges. So since there's no flag here, we're going to create our own flag, and we're just going to do some graffiti. This is some classic classic hacker activity. We're going to deface the server a little bit. So we're just going to echo out a message, and the message is going to be HackerFrogs rule, and we're going to output that to graffiti.txt. So we created our graffiti.txt file in the root directory, and it says HackerFrogs rule. Okay, so that means we've effectively finished the exercise. All right, so that was a guided walkthrough for the injection machine over on Dockerlabs.es. All right, so if you enjoyed this guided walkthrough, please click on the like and subscribe buttons underneath the video and leave a comment on the video as well. But until next time, HackerFrogs out.
Hey there, HackerFrogs! Are you enjoying this workshop? Learning new concepts and skills? If so, there's a way you can support the channel, and it's totally free. Just click on the subscribe button below the video. Also, click on the like button. And if you have questions or comments on this workshop, please leave them below the video. Thanks for listening. And now, back to our scheduled programming.